right. Good morning, evening, afternoon, whenever it is that you're watching these videos. Welcome to part one of our exposition of the prologue to Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The plan here is to go section by section and maybe even line by line over the entire prologue to give us a deeper understanding of the central ideas from which Nietzsche is working when he writes this piece. There won't be a lot of information here with regards to Nietzsche's background, his life, his other works. If you want to know more about that, I do have another video, Introduction to Friedrich Nietzsche, in which I go into that way more detail. So with that, let's just get right into it. Prologue 1. When Zarathustra was 30 years old, he left his home and the lake of his home and went into the mountains. There he enjoyed his spirit and his solitude, and for 10 years did not weary of it. But at last his heart changed, and rising one morning with the rosy dawn, he went before the sun and spoke to it thus. All right, so we already have a lot going on here. The first part, when Zarathustra was 30 years old, he goes up into the mountains. I've heard a lot of commentators who draw a parallel between Zarathustra being 30 and Jesus being 30. Jesus begins his ministry when he's 30 years old. It was actually a requirement for rabbis to be at least 30 years old. However, in this case, Zarathustra is not beginning his ministry when he's 30 years old. He's 30 years old when he goes up into the mountains. The text then indicates that he enjoyed his spirit and his solitude, and for 10 years did not weary of it before he comes down from the mountain. So Jesus begins his ministry when he's 30. Zarathustra begins his when he's 40. So big difference. Don't miss that part. And then he continues the text. You great star, what would your happiness be had you not those for whom you shine? For 10 years you climbed here to my cave and would have wearied of the light and of the journey had it not been for me, my eagle and my serpent. So we have this really strange image of an eagle and a serpent, which we'll take a look at later in the text. But that second section there is a wonderful question. What would your happiness be had you not those for whom you shine? In other words, the sun can be as brilliant as it is. It can just overflow with life and light and energy. But unless there's somebody around to appreciate it, it doesn't seem to amount to much. This is some foreshadowing. Nietzsche is going to say in just a little bit, Zarathustra leaves his solitude because he's acquired so much wisdom that he's overflowing with it, just like the sun is overflowing with light and energy. And because he's overflowing with wisdom, the only thing he can do is to give it away. He's going to elicit this idea of this image of a cup that's overflowing. And if it's overflowing, unless there's someone there to catch what's overflowing from the cup, it's a waste of liquid. In the same way, Zarathustra says he's overflowing with wisdom, and unless there's someone there to catch the wisdom, it's a waste of wisdom. We see that in the very next paragraph. He writes, Behold, I am weary of my wisdom. Like the bee that has gathered too much honey, I need hands outstretched to take it. I would rather give away and distribute until the wise among men once more find joy in their folly and the poor in their riches. So he compares himself to a bee that has gathered too much honey is overflowing. Honey, of course, is an image of sweetness, but it's also a life-giving substance. You can live for quite a while on honey, surprisingly. So wisdom is kind of like the same thing. It's sweet, it's wonderful to most people, but you can also live on it, and not necessarily physically, but certainly spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. So he's comparing himself to this bee that's gathered too much honey. He says he needs hands outstretched to take it. So he needs to find people who are willing to receive his wisdom. He doesn't want to go out into the world and just shove his wisdom down people's throats. He wants people who are willing to receive the wisdom, to take it from him, hands outstretched. In other words, they're asking for it. It isn't enough just to push it onto people. People have to want the wisdom in order for him to want to give it to them. And then he continues, Therefore, must I descend into the deep, as you do in the evening when you go behind the sea and give light also to the underworld, you exuberant star. So he's got this image of like Earth here, let's say, and then we get the sun, and during the day the sun's giving light to the upper world, as it were. You can think of it as the world of the living. But at night the sun kind of goes down underneath and then gives light to the underworld. So the sun gives light to the whole world. So too, Zarathustra sees himself as going out and giving life to the whole world through his wisdom. Now we can think again of the underworld here metaphorically as the place of the dead. So we have the place of the living. So he's going, that they don't really need the wisdom. Those are the people who already have wisdom. But he's going to descend from the mountain, and then drawing again this parallel between himself and the sun down, and he's going to give light to the underworld, the dead souls, the people who are living kind of these lives of just mundane existence without purpose, without meaning. He's going to go give them purpose and meaning through his wisdom. And then he continues, like you, like the sun, I have to go down, as men say, to whom I shall descend. Bless me then, you tranquil eye that can look on even the greatest happiness without envy. I love that line, man. They can look on even the greatest happiness without envy. That's a rare personality. That's a rare soul indeed. A person who can look on the happiness of others, especially when you're in the midst of suffering, when you're in the midst of depression and sadness, or even just kind of in the midst of the mundane, when life isn't as exciting as you would want it to be, or maybe life isn't going the way that you want it to, and then you see your friends and they're happy, or you see other people who are happy, and you're happy for them, not to be envious of them. Remember, there's a difference between jealous and being envious. And envious is kind of like the darker side of it. You want to, it almost burns you up inside. Like, we hate it when our friends become successful. We get envious of them. No, the star here, and even wisdom teaches us this, how to look on even the greatest happiness and not be envious. This is central to Nietzsche's philosophy, by the way. He's all about overcoming circumstance. He believes that we should be able to take life exactly as it is, not change a single thing about it, and then to struggle to overcome it. To be envious of somebody else is to want the lot that they have in life, to not be satisfied with our own. Of course, it's very likely to be just ignorance, that we look at other people's lives and think that everything is great and perfect and wonderful because we only see the facade of it, just like other people only see the facade or the persona of our lives that we show them. In the same way, everybody has struggles. And he continues, bless the cup that is about to overflow. That's himself. He's about to overflow with wisdom, that the water may flow golden from it and carry everywhere the reflection of your happiness. So he wants his wisdom to be a blessing to others as water. Again, water is a life-giving thing, golden. He wants it to be valuable to everybody. He says, behold, this cup is again going to empty itself, and Zarathustra is going to be a man again. Thus began Zarathustra's downgoing. So things are about to get serious, because Zarathustra is referring to Zarathustra in third person here. He says Zarathustra is going to be a man again. So when he says that he's going to be a man again, it kind of leaves us to wonder, if you're going to be a man again, then what have you been for the past 10 years living up there in solitude? Has he been a beast? Has he been a god? Has he been a combination of a beast and a god? In other words, has he been a philosopher? What is it that he's been? Well, what he's been isn't as important as what it is that he's going to be. So he says that he's going to be a man again, and then he's going to go down into the earth and share this wisdom. Again, he's hoping that people will receive it with outstretched arms. He's referring to it as water. It's life-giving, it's honey, it's sweet, it's life-nourishing. In Prologue 2, we'll start to see how people receive that wisdom. So hang out, watch part 2.